What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Learned Aloha Podcast. I'm Van.
I'm Derek.
We got my good friend, Mr. Jonathan Franco, with us today. He's a dad, husband, master fisherman, attorney, and a musician.
Making me sound better than I really am.
Hey, that's what we do.
Man, that's a lot. Tell us about yourself. Tell us where you come from.
Man, I grew up in Montgomery, Alabama, so I'm a long way from home.
How'd you end up down here?
That's kind of a crazy thing, but I went to law school in Jackson at Mississippi College, and then I knew some folks down here while I was in law school that were in law school with me, and we would do spring breaks down here in Ocean Springs, and it was beautiful. Yeah. And we went fishing and all this stuff, and then get out of law school, and I'm looking for a job. And he goes, hey, there's a guy, one of my good buddies goes, hey, there's a guy hiring down in Ocean Springs. And I was like, well, shoot, let me, I drove down here, did the application or whatever, and got offered the job that day, and then just moved down here.
Right on.
So
how'd you get to that point, man? Tell us about yourself growing up. What made you go in that direction?
So, I grew up, and I feel like I just kind of floated. Let me back up a little bit. I kind of had things given to me in terms of came from, my dad's a doctor, his dad's a business owner, successful family businesses on both sides. And, I feel like that might not be the best way to grow up, honestly, because I feel like you get out of high school and you don't know anything.
Yeah.
You don't know the real world. And so, in terms of, I think I probably should have gone to a community college or something like that, because I went to Alabama and I didn't know anything about anything. Because everybody, anytime I had gotten in trouble, the parents run up to the school, to the principal's office and fix it. And anytime I needed anything, somebody did something for me. And so when you ask, how did you end up going in that direction, I just had this loose thing. I always thought things were just happening for me, because everybody had always just kind of given me things. But I was good at reading and literature and history. Those are kind of some things that interested me. And then I got into debate, which is, so I'm kind of a nerdy dude.
That's a pretty good skill for a lawyer.
Yeah, so
You gotta have it.
I really enjoyed that, and because I wasn't doing golf or some of my friends, or tennis or football or baseball, but I got into that research and things like that with a debate. But generally, I was I guess I'll go be a lawyer one day, but no real firm plans, and went to Alabama and majored in political science, minored in English.
Roll Tide.
And I just kind of floated through that too, because I feel again, going back to what I said earlier, you just think it's just going to happen for you and everything's just going to work out. So how did I get into that? It was just my natural skill set, and not having a better plan, really, to where eventually a time came where it was you got to do something with your life. And I was I guess I'll go be a lawyer.
Did you see it as a challenge? Because you said, you kind of had things kind of flow your way for a long time, even through college. And then when you got done with that, were you this isn't something that's going to be handed to me. I'm going to have to earn this. Was that something that you thought about a little bit?
So,
maybe subconsciously?
I don't think I thought about it, but I do think there's some crossroads I had in my life. I think that the first one was I just was floating through my freshman year at Alabama. Like I said, I just was not ready to be at this big place all on my own. And I was the youngest child. There's only two of us, but I was the younger. And all that privilege I was talking about, I just wasn't ready for it. And the crossroads was, I basically almost flunked out of Alabama and was put on academic probation. And my dad was like, you're either going to make all A's this summer or I'm bringing you back and you're going to get a job and that's the end of this. And so when I had my back up against the wall that time, it was kind of sink or swim, and I made all A's and kind of got my stuff straightened out. But then, when I was because I guess the question is, did you think about that, or did you know how that was going to happen? I don't think you know it's going to happen until it happens. I mean, there were some other times where, after I graduated, when I was a senior, my mom committed suicide. And so that was another crossroads that kind of threw me into then I graduated and I spent 2 years in Montgomery, went back home because I didn't, I was supposed to have gotten ready for law school, had taken the entrance exam and all. I didn't do any of that kind of stuff. So I'm just kind of floating. And, I'm working at a law firm, not a very serious job, although it was probably a good intro into that. But the next, I think, crossroads was in Montgomery. I was just kind of hanging out with friends, not taking anything very seriously. I have a degree from Alabama, but I'm not doing anything. And I'm supposed to be going to law school, and now we're 2 years into this, so I'm just like hanging out. I think the thing with my mom probably had an impact on that. But
sure, I would imagine.
The next crossroads, I think, was I needed to get the heck out of Montgomery and get somewhere. So, I applied to MC Law and just kind of get me there, get me out of Montgomery. So then the next crossroads was actually, I didn't do good my first year there. Because I'm still kind of, it just hasn't clicked for me.
Just kind of floating and kind of just taking it as it comes. You didn't have that pursuit of that drive to excel in what you were doing. You were doing it, but you weren't like, I'm going to be the best damn law student this place has ever seen.
Couldn't find your motivation.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. And you're just either at Alabama doing enough to get by and kind of getting you out of that hole that you originally had, but not really getting after it. And
right.
Then at MC Law, the first year, same thing, until now you're with another back against your wall kind of thing, which is where if you don't get this better, you might graduate from here and not even get a job. You might not have a career. It could be a big darn disaster. So, it finally clicked, and it never unclicked for me then. And I started to, have the best grades of anybody in a class that's full of smart people in a law school. And that's like, okay, I can do this. When you try, you are, pretty good. And so my family talks about it as like a personality shift. Like I was a totally different person. Like I became a serious person that cared about stuff. And before that, you're just like hanging out, wanting to party, whatever, with your friends. And so those were the kind of things that I think kind of shaped me.
I think that's important to note because I talked about it when I talked about finding my job that I really wanted to do for the rest of my life, and how my attention shifted, and how, just finding what you want to do can completely turn your life around, And that's why I think it's important for young dudes out there. I know that you're not going to have the answers right away sometimes about what you want to do for the rest of your life, but pursue it, because when you find it, it's worth it,
I don't think that there's some things you can develop, like you can develop skills, but you can't develop, I don't think, ambition. I think that either it comes through you in your life, like you you come to a crossroads, but it's something you either have or you don't, and you don't know when that light's going to come on.
Or it's dormant until you find the thing that you're passionate about, right?
Yeah. Sink or swim, you know?
Mine was like out of necessity. It wasn't that I'd found something I was passionate about. It was that, I guess, like, you're going to sink or swim, basically.
Right. But once you did hit that stride, then you started putting more emphasis on wanting to be better at that craft, because ultimately, like you said, that would determine how you would place in the job market once you completed that. And so you probably just, once that light bulb went off and it clicked for you, you were more driven then, probably in all those aspects, and probably not just in that, but like just in your life, right? Because you could see the difference it made with your education. So if you applied those same principles in your life, you would get that result.
Yeah, I think that, and when it goes off, you start to see things as everything's a process. And hey, what do I need to do? What are my goals? How do I accomplish these things? And then you just start to do it, and things start to fall into place for you. And I mean, what I do now, I didn't know that it was a passion, because I went into a firm that you did everything. You did every single different field, but there was what I do now was a subset, was something they do, and then I got a taste of that, and then I just wanted to do just that, and then left and joined some other guys, and now I do what I want to do.
That's awesome. You said you kind of had to, like you said, like test the waters of that, because it is a huge thing. It's not like you're just one attorney for this one thing. You know, in most cases, you got to hustle and you got to deal with all different types of people and all different types of situations. And so when you found that and you know what you like to do now, that's how you got there. But when you go back to that high school version of you, it's two different people, right?
Oh, yeah. You know, it's hard to describe it. It's like, you just, in high school, all I wanted to do was have fun, I guess, or be entertained, whether that's playing a video game or going out with friends. But, you know, when I see these kids these days they're in like 80 extracurricular things, they have a 4.0, and they're so motivated and all this stuff. Like I said, on a scholarship committee for Rotary, and we're looking at these kids, we're going to give them some scholarships, and I'm seeing all this stuff. Like, I was infinitely away from that when I was in high school. And I mean, I don't know what these kids, it can just be your background, or, you know, they might not have come from what I came from, and they have that desire, and they're motivated. But I wasn't.
Going back to it, do you think that maybe you knew that subconsciously? And do you think going to law school in Mississippi was your way of putting yourself out there, putting your own back up against the wall, and like getting out of the nest? Do you think that was intentional, or?
I think that I did want to get out of Alabama. I mean, I'd been there since I was 22. No, I was older than that. I was 25, because I floated around for a little while after Alabama. So yeah, I wanted to get somewhere else. It was time.
Yeah, that change is always what most people see as a driving force, and it could be a job or where you live or anything really. But you start to adapt, and it's like living down here, right? People that are moving here from other parts of the country are like, oh, it's beautiful during the fall and spring. Well, come June and July and late August, they're like, man, it's like 98 degrees and the humidity's on 100 right now. I don't even want to go outside. You know, that's the price you pay to live in this type of beautiful place, though. And, you know, for me, I was born and raised here. It's just another summer, you know. But it's all about that perspective and how people get to that point, you know.
So you get out of law school, you get a job down here in Ocean Springs. Where do you go from there?
So I'm in Ocean Springs now. You know, not getting paid very good. You know, people have a misconception of you get out and you're a lawyer and you're just making bank or whatever.
Just crushing it right away.
No, not at all. And then you're also working hard. But So yeah, doing that, and I worked in downtown Ocean Springs, which was cool, and just doing everything, and being in court a lot, and so that went on for a while, and I started to have an interest in what I do now, which is plaintiff's work. Some people call it, but there's a little man, and then there's a company. There's the people that defend insurance companies and defend big organizations, and then there's the people that represent the little man that's going up against them. And I represent the little man going up against the big corporation. And it's usually in the form of personal injury or workers' compensation. But that's what I got into. I didn't like the family law as much because there was just so much negativity
drama,
and fighting and drama all the time. And I mean, God knows that we need the lawyers that do that. I'm not talking bad about them, and it just was not my thing. And I dabbled in criminal defense because we just did everything that came in the door. But there was something about the personal injury stuff that I enjoyed. So that went on from 2013 to 2017. And then that firm was starting to come to a point where it was no longer going to exist anymore. The founding partner was having some health issues and stuff. So I had an offer to go out with actually one of my buddies that's also a lawyer down here and become a partner. And they had a small firm on Jackson Avenue in Ocean Springs, and I joined them, and it was basically a chance to go out on my own and kind of build up my own practice.
Awesome.
See, and when you say that about defending the little guy, it's like something definitely clicked for you in law school after that first year. And it's like you said, that light bulb went off and you just haven't looked back. And I think, like you said, you're representing an individual who's going against this huge company or companies, whatever it may be, but they have a checkbook that's limitless in most cases, right? And that they'll spend whatever to not have to pay this guy or woman, whatever it is. And I think that's pretty admirable that you not only like the challenge, but you're doing it for the right reason. Somebody who had been wronged and is injured and can't really, supply for his own family or her family in a current situation. I think that's kind of you constantly testing yourself, That's how I see it from listening to you talk. I think it's awesome.
So I think that to some extent I just fell into it because the folks that represent the insurance companies and the big corporations are usually people that maybe went to a two-lane law, or I don't know, went to law school and finished in the top of their class and then got recruited into these old firms that have always represented these things. I didn't do that. I wasn't going to be on that side of it because I wasn't that blue chip type recruit that's what they want. So I was going to be on the other side of it. You're giving me all these props and saying that, and I hate to say it, but I kind of view it that way.
So would it be fair to say you're a nonconformist, and during the process of being a nonconformist, you found something you thought was really cool, and then you started pushing in that direction? Is that fair?
I think that's fair. It's just that is what I fell into, and then I liked it, and I liked the strategy of it. There's a whole world to trying cases, litigation from the plaintiff's perspective, and you got to convince a jury, and before you even get there you got to do a whole bunch of other stuff, but that art of how you can win a case was fascinating to me. And all we do is chase that and go to spend thousands of dollars going to trial academies and stuff like this. It's a continuing pursuit that's always evolving because everybody's trying to get the edge. They want to get the edge. They'll figure out what we're doing, and then we got to change what we're doing. And so I enjoy all that. Goes back to the whole like debate and research and everything. Like I just like to nerd out on this stuff, and I just enjoy it.
Like I said, I think it's an admirable thing, though. you might not say it's props, but from my perspective, and kind of hearing you talk about all the way from high school through getting your first job after you graduated from law school, and the light bulb going off and clicking, sometimes you just kind of get into that groove. And like I said earlier, you have that drive now that you admitted that you didn't have when you were younger. And I think that's what's fascinating. It's kind of like when the fire keeps burning logs, it just gets brighter and brighter and brighter. And you want to keep feeding that fire until it's just like nobody can deny that fire. I just think it's cool, man.
I'm competitive too. I didn't say that. So that's the other thing. I hate to lose, and I'm also just competitive with the people around me. So I think that also drives me.
Yeah, that's really important. I find that in a lot of guys that I associate with, that the ones that are successful don't stop thinking about it the moment they clock out. They got to keep self-teaching, self-learning, reaching out there and getting better. I think that's pretty awesome. One thing that we run into, though, with that, now that you find your drive and all that, and I ask just about everybody that comes, once you find that drive and you're 100% in your groove and you're doing what you're doing, has that caused any problems for you? Have you had to dial it back? How have you had trouble finding balance? Like what do you do in your personal life?
So I don't think that you can be, and I could be wrong about this, but I don't think you can be in modern society on some of these higher end things. What is the word for it? But an attorney or a doctor or some of these things, and only work 40 hours a week and be home with your kids all the time. It's because we're in a capitalist society, and so it's competitive. So there's people trying to beat you out. So I just don't think that it's almost like you're not going to have it all. You're not going to be able to work 40 hours and be at the top of your game for these kind of things and spend all the time with your kids. I think. And it's sad, honestly. I mean, there's been weekends where I'm up at the office all weekend and I feel bad. I have a 2-year-old and I'm not home with her. And so it might not be the way to go. I mean, because that's another thing. I'm kind of rambling, but it's not all about money either.
I don't think you're rambling at all.
No, you're preaching the choir.
It's not all about money either, and because that's something you can run into as well, is when you're kind of chasing that or whatever, and then you get there and you're like, well, now I'm there, but then people might turn that metric on its head for you, and they might say, well, it's not about money, and they might be right.
So yeah, let's talk about something important. We've talked about work and school and all that stuff, man. How'd you get started fishing?
I guess you just do that when you're down here, or I did at least. And I had friends down here that did it. So it started with the just dinking around in the bayou, which is still something I like to do.
Right.
But yeah, I guess the question is, how did I get started? And I had friends down here, and they kind of showed me, bayou fishing is how it started.
So you really didn't do any of that growing up?
Not really. We had a pond, and would go do some catfish and brim and stuff like that, but not often.
Cool. So how'd you get hooked the first time, man? What'd you catch?
Down here, I don't remember there being any standout fish that I hooked, but became a thing. I like going in my kayak.
Oh yeah.
And going off East Beach, and I was smoking them out there. I was catching a lot of fish out there, and I liked that. And then I got my first 22-foot Pathfinder boat. It was an intro to boats for me, and did that, a lot of inshore with that. And then a Key West, kind of got 23-foot, got more into the offshore stuff with that. And then recently got a 27 with 250s and we've been going about 100 miles offshore in that. So I'm pretty obsessed with offshore fishing right now.
He's very competitive, like you said earlier. And one day I pulled up into this little bayou mouth. And I'll never forget, because we were catching redfish. They were like slot or maybe just under. And all of a sudden, bam, flounder. He was like, oh, we're keeping that. So I get the flounder. I got my fish line out, and because I normally don't keep an ice chest for fish on the boat, because I'm a weird fisherman who likes to fly fish and let them go most of the time. So I catch one, and he turns around and he has a shrimp, popping cork, bam, flounder, doormat. It's like, oh, it's on now. I think we caught 3 or 4 that size in that one spot in like maybe 20 minutes or less.
That was one of the best flounder fishing. That's probably the best flounder fishing trip I've ever been on. And yeah, you've reached this higher plane of fishing than has, where I'm too small of a person. Like when I catch a nice fish, I'm gonna keep it and go eat it. And he doesn't even have anything to do. There's no ice chest. So we have a stringer.
Yeah, I have a stringer. Right. For when I actually get into something, I'm like, okay, we're gonna keep these flounder, a couple good, reds or whatever. But we did that right, and so I get on the back of the skiff and I'm pulling around this real skinny little windy bayou, and it's pretty shallow. And we come around this curve, and there's this drop off, and the tide was kind of going out, and he had a popping cork with shrimp, and he threw it out there. In this little skinny bayou that's only about maybe 7-8 feet across, in a bend in a curve, he catches this just donkey of a drum, this redfish. So there's not a lot of place to fight it, and there's not a lot of place for that fish to go. Yeah. Man, that was awesome. Standing on the back of the boat and watching his eyes just slide up in this condensed environment, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna keep this bad boy."
That's the other thing. Van is like, he's a bigger person than me because he enjoys just pulling the skiff and watching other people fish. But I'm too selfish. Like, I want to be the one fishing.
Well, you just don't have quite the rips,
Right.
Well, for me,
one day you'll be that guy that's doing it for other people, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I was born and raised on the bayou, so I had spent a lifetime doing that before I even met you, And that's kind of what's cool about getting together and talking and just sharing those same interests, because like Derek said, we come from different backgrounds. We grew up doing different things, and it's cool to kind of interchange those and see each of us thrive at something that we didn't even have an interest in at one point in our life, And so, yeah, for me, I enjoy that. I enjoy seeing the fish before the person on the front of the boat, calling it out 20 feet, 12 o'clock, and watching it happen in real time from an elevated position, watching the fish inhale that thing and eat, and then watching you on the front of the boat turn around and go like this, set the hook. I mean, to me, that's just as fun as feeding them a fly sometimes. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, that day was like basically he was like a guide, and you could have paid good money for that. People would pay good money to have somebody pull them around and put them on fish.
Yeah, but for me, that was just like an awesome day on the bayou, And we met through social media. Like, we didn't know each other, then just reached out and started communicating about fishing and stuff, because that's kind of when you were still kayaking a little bit or right around the time you got your Pathfinder. And I was like, hey, I'm all about it. It's one of those things, that fishing really kind of brings people together. And it doesn't matter who you are, what color skin you are, what background you have. When you experience something like that with somebody else, and it was just you and I, and no one but greenhead, horseflies, it's just such like a marker in my life that I look back and go, man, that was a great day.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that actually reminds me of something else. Because you're talking about fishing and social media and meeting somebody that way, and people would say, well, that's kind of crazy, but it reminds me of being a musician. When I was in Jackson, I had graduated from law school. I'm waiting on my bar results, and I'm working at Dillard's selling shoes, and just living in Jackson. I was trying to get a band. I wanted to get into music because I'm a big guitar player, or I was. And I was on Craigslist, and they were like, we need somebody. We're going to have an open jam, and we're going to have some folks come out to this bar. And I did. And I went out there, and I jammed with these guys, and I didn't know any of these people. And then we ended up being in a band. And so maybe like just meeting somebody randomly is in certain ways could be like dangerous or bad or whatever. But when you're talking about music, you're talking about fishing and stuff like that with a shared interest, it can work out.
Yeah.
So we've skipped over one big thing. How did you meet your wife? How did that come around?
I was here in Ocean Springs, and we just had mutual friends. And I remember I asked this girl, we were all out at a bar, and I said, what about her? What's the deal with her? And she basically went over and talked to her, and she's like, she'll go on a date with you. And I'm like, okay. And then so we went on some dates, and the rest is history from there. But she's from Monticello. Big family of hunters, outdoorsmen, and so now we have a 2-year-old, like I said, and so it's a good life here.
It's awesome to find that support. I imagine that's pretty refreshing when you come home from a hard day.
Yeah, I mean, like they say, behind every man is a great woman, and I couldn't do what I do. I'd be completely lost. Let's put it that way. Like,
We're all in the same boat, man.
Yeah.
I promise you, we are.
I mean, I don't even know where anything in my kitchen is. Like, she does everything for me.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think some of that's intentional. I'm like,
Yeah.
Where's my deodorant at? It was on the counter. She's like, bottom drawer left. You know where it's at. Come on.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's why I got my own junk drawer. Because if I don't want it moved or anything like that, it's got to go there. Because God bless her, my wife, she loves a clean house, and she does a wonderful job doing that.
So besides fishing, besides music, being an attorney, do you have other interests that I don't know about?
My dad called me a Renaissance man at one point because there's too many hobbies is what I think.
Yep.
And I love golf. I love fishing. I love music. I love cooking. I love barbecuing, smoking, grilling. And I found that you just don't have enough time for it all. You got to pick and choose what you do. So these days, I hate it because guitar might be like the thing I'm best at in life, and I don't ever. They are collecting dust, because I fish, because that's what I'm obsessed with. So, yeah.
And how old are you?
I'm 38, about to be 39 this month.
So for me, with music, when I was gigging and playing 4 nights a week and had a full-time job, when it got to kind of like being like work, I started to kind of like not care as much about it. And it's like anything else in life, when you give it that distance and that space, sometimes I'll come in here and pick up my dobro or, my Strat or something, and I'll hit a few licks, and I'm like, and that felt good. I want to play for a little bit, and it's kind of with anything in life. If you do something so much all the time, you just, even in a job that you love, it'll start to feel like, man, this is a grindy situation, but when you step back, take a vacation, and you come back and you're refreshed, you just have a different outlook on it sometimes. And I think some people don't recognize that, and they just keep trugging along, and maybe everybody that works with them sees it, but they don't see it,
I think that happens a lot with very intelligent, skilled, and driven people. You know, like we don't know sometimes where the off switch is.
Yeah.
You know, I had to find that. I'm a blacksmith on the side, and that's what really gets me going and going out there and working in my shop on the weekends. But then I wanted to do it all the time, and I had friends wanting to make orders for things and stuff like that. Next thing you know, I got 6 months of work lined up, and some days you just get up and have a cup of coffee and don't feel like doing it. And,
Yeah.
you know, you got to listen to yourself when you do that.
Yeah, you should definitely, when you have a free day, you should come up to Derek's shop and watch that whole process. For my mind, I was blown away. I literally was blown away because you see it on TV and movies, like older movies, like medieval times, some guy's in this real dim lit room and he's just bang, bang. It's humbling when you take something that you put and it starts changing colors because of the temperature it gets to before you can start manipulating it. And you take this hammer and like, it's not really doing anything for me, you know? And then he picks up a hammer and it's like, bam, bam, and it stretches out, you know? But the process is really cool because it's one of those things that he said this to me. He's like, you got to think back in those times, in the medieval times, somebody had to make the tools to build something. And that's what the blacksmith did. And it's almost like, well, what was here before the universe? And you're like, it had to be a blacksmith.
Or a story about one.
Yeah, or a story about a blacksmith. But yeah, that was pretty fascinating for me going over there and seeing that. And that's something that I didn't have any clue or knowledge about. So it doesn't matter how old you are or what you're kind of into, you know, throughout life, you start to experience things. You're like, man, I didn't even pay attention to this. I had no idea this was a thing, but it's fascinating to me. So besides like golf, fishing, all that stuff, where do you see yourself and what kind of like drives you in the next maybe 10 years? Is there like a goal that you've kind of set for yourself, or are you just focusing on the task at hand in front of you with your current clients and things?
You know, I do just kind of focus on the task at hand. I mean, we have so many, you got a caseload, and so you're juggling all this and you're trying to, it's like a symphony, you're trying to make it all work. And it's a small business as well, which is a whole nother thing. And so between all that, I mean, we've been successful, and just keeping that up. And I think it just kind of takes care of itself. When you have a process and you do it, and it takes care of itself as far as, you know, want to keep the family, do as much as I can with my family, and get out there and fish as much as I can, and have fun with my friends. And I think that's pretty much what I have on tap.
Just to kind of enjoy work, life, all of it, you know, because I've met people, and myself included, you just get too involved in one thing or another. That, like I was saying about guitar earlier, like that was my life for almost 12, 13 years plus a full-time job. And so I didn't have time for anything else. I used to surf. I surfed professionally. I didn't surf. And then randomly my son, before he graduated and moved out, was like, hey, I want to go surf. Let's go to the beach for the weekend. And picked up a couple boards off the wall and went surfed, and I was like, wow, I haven't experienced that in like 10 years, and it felt amazing, you know? It's just one of those things that you can be really good at certain things, but if that love for it's not there, then you could do it, but you're not going to do it to the way that you did when you fell in love with whatever it was.
I think that like you're talking about vacations and then coming back and stuff like that, and I think that even like very successful people still have not figured that out, because I can go on a vacation and come back and get back into the grind and feel like one day later that that stress is back or whatever. So, you know, figuring that out is a whole thing that a lot of people have not even figured out, I don't think. But I think that is something that you have to figure out with how to balance it all, and how to balance yourself out. And it might not just be going to the Caribbean for 7 days or whatever. Like, you know, some people take hiatuses for a certain period of time. And so you definitely have to I think exercise is a big thing. Go to the gym, and I'm not weightlifting or anything all the time, but at least get some cardio every day, that kind of stuff.
Has there been anybody in your life that was like a serious role model that you said, hey, I learned a lot from this person?
So I think my dad, has always been there. And I think this was one thing I was going to tell y'all, is that what I would tell people is that don't give up on your kids, because I was an idiot for a long time, but he was always stressing academics and I guess trying to make me do the things I was supposed to do, even though I was just not doing what I was supposed to do. But that can go on for a while. Like, you could have a kid, and I'm not talking about just them in middle school or high school. Like, they could be all the way to college. They could be all the way to 30 years old before it really flips on for them. And if he had given up on me and not pushed me, he was always there. Like, every time I was in trouble, every time anything bad happened, he was always, helping me out. Now, sometimes did he do too much to where that created that issue where I was, and he enabled it or whatever? But he was always there. And I think it would have been easy to give up. And I've probably seen other people's parents give up on them. Hey, he's just being an idiot. I'm tired of it. He needs to just go off and do whatever. But I think if you stick it out, and it might, even when you want to give up on a kid, I think that eventually it can pay off.
Yeah, that's important, man. I've got a 11-year-old daughter and a 20-year-old son who's fixing to be 21, and I have to remind myself that I too was those ages, and what I went through and what I did in comparison to my dad and my situation. And same thing, my dad never gave up on me, ever, and not a lot of kids have that. And I think that's kind of, when we talk about the learned alpha, it's not, for some people, it's not always their dad. It may be an uncle. It may be, a friend of the family, just somebody who kind of slid in there and stepped up and just said, I believe in you, or, you can do this, because some people don't have that. And I think it's fascinating when we talk to people sometimes, and like you said, that light bulb went off for you and you found that drive. The fact that came naturally to you is amazing, because it doesn't come to some people. Some people kind of have to be pushed and shoved and always have someone to say, okay, now go do this, and you go do this, But like you said, when you're put in those situations with your back up against the wall, it's either fight or flight or sink or swim, however you want to say it. But that's kind of pivotal moments in someone's life where they say, I can do this. I don't need somebody. But it sure is nice to have, like, your dad not giving up on you and having that reinforcement, And like I said, with what you do now, I think there's a lot of similarities. You're going against the big guy, and I think maybe for you, you might not think of it this way, but it's a challenge for you every time you talk to a new client and your wheels start turning in your head and you start saying, okay, all right, we got something here. I think, and you, during your processes, know the whole playing field, and how you need to play it, kind of like chess, and it's a challenge to you, and so you accept that challenge and you go after them. What advice would you give to somebody like a young guy right now who might not have any desire, any thought about what they actually want to do in life? What kind of motivation would you tell them? Just get up and do something,
I've thought about that before, because to some extent I think that it just has to happen to you. But it sure would have been nice if somebody had kind of told me when I was going through it, hey, you are about to put yourself in a precarious situation and you need to snap out of it, and you need to start getting after it and doing responsible things to put yourself in a good situation. So, I would tell them, like, look, if you keep going down this road that you're going down, you're going to be a loser. You're not going to get the things in life that you want, and it's going to be bad. But I think it's somewhat tough if you are going through that, for somebody to just tell you that versus you having your back up against the wall and facing it.
Yeah.
Man, that's a lot to take in.
I know.
That's pretty profound. I think we all learn that way. I think that's the best way to learn myself, is just having to experience. I don't know. I'm hard-headed, though. Like, you can tell me things, and I can register in my head that, hey, man, that's probably the best course of action to take. But until I screw it up one time, man, I'm not really learning. I'm just telling you the truth.
As a man, for me, that's one of the hardest things is sometimes not to take advice, but to be told to do something a different way than my brain tells me I should do it.
I have given people some wonderful advice at 3 o'clock in the morning and not been able to follow a bit of it in my own personal life.
Yeah, but it's one of those things. I acknowledge that though, and I think once you acknowledge that, you're like, okay, please tell me, and a rational person will think about those things.
Yeah.
When you're younger and you're hot-headed, you're not seeing it from the same elevation.
Some of us take a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But if somebody had just, what I would tell them is, it's not going to be given to you. If you think that you're just going to get out there and it's just going to work out and you're going to be given things, you're not. You're going to be at the bottom of the bottom being miserable. So you've got to pick yourself up and advance yourself.
Yeah, the only way those things work is if you're grinding.
Yeah, I'm telling you. And then some of these young guys, they don't see that. Like, the job market is crazy, right? Because in any kind of building and trade field, the go-getters, the guys that may not know how to do everything, but they show up at 5:30 in the morning when they're supposed to be there, and they yes sir, no sir, and they take advice, and they don't mind sweeping. From my life experience, those are the guys that become business owners and bosses and have big companies in the future because they've gone from sweeping the floor all the way through the whole spectrum, so they understand the entire business, whatever it may be. But the people who don't, they're just only seeing it from one level, and they don't know what this guy's going through who's having to sweep the floor or do all the framing on a house, whatever it is, That's one thing I like about when you watch the Undercover Boss, they go back and they've been the CEO for 10 years or whatever it is, and they forgot, hey, I used to have to do this with my dad, and yeah, this sucked, and people have lives and other things on them. It's not that they're not trying to do a good job for you. They may have other issues. I think for me as a man, sometimes it's better just to slow down, take a good picture of what's going on fully, because you can get hot-headed or misguided sometimes, and
learn how to work to live instead of learning how to live to work. That's the big deal.
There you go. That's a good one. But, when you're younger, you got that piss and vinegar in you,
Yeah.
You want to do it all. What is your favorite fish that you've caught to this point? I wanted to know this, by the way. I wanted to know this.
I'll tell you, maybe it's just a recency bias, but the tuna that we caught 2 trips ago, caught a blackfin tuna. I wanted to catch yellowfin tuna, and so we failed, but we did get to some extent the targeted species. But when you do all this stuff to get yourself to a point where you're fishing offshore, it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. Like, there's so much that goes into it, and you see all this stuff on social media. People are going out there and they're just slaying fish left and right, but it's not that easy. And going out there with a mission, I want to catch tuna, and then catching a tuna is pretty cool.
Yeah. I saw that and I was like, he had to be stoked on that on his new boat.
And then actually, true to form, I'm always learning the hard way and fumbling and bumbling my way through life. So I'm letting line off the end of this 50 wide, and we're chunking for tuna, and it's just floating down this chunk with a hook. And my buddy, and I'm like, man, I've been doing this forever. There's no way, it's time to reel back up. And right when I said that, and he kept telling me like, no, dude, keep going. Because it might be going out sideways. It's not going straight down.
Right.
You need to keep letting line out. And right when I said that, he goes, were you going to catch that tuna or not? Because he had seen it had hooked one. Right when I was complaining about how long we had a tuna on the line.
I'd like to get a shot at a wahoo sometime. I've never caught one of those. You ever had one?
No, and that's another thing is trolling. I feel like you got to be very patient for that, and we'll see, because I can get bored pretty easy.
Man, I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast today, man.
Yeah, it
Man,
was great to meet you.
This is a blast, and I appreciate y'all having me on.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much.